Welcome to the next episode of the Big Homie Podcast. It's episode 2. Today we're going to be discussing, are street smarts beneficial in a corporate environment? But before we get to that, as always, I like starting off with a motivational quote. So here it goes. Try not to become a man of success, but rather become a man of value. Albert Einstein. That one really hit home. The reason for it is, most people at the beginning and early stages of their career chase the money and then realize that that's not the most important thing. The legacy is what's important. That's what's going to give you the most value. So, that one really hit home for me this week, y'all. And I was happy that I found it. So, getting into today's podcast, right? This has been a very hot topic about street smarts. And you know people that didn't didn't have the same upbringing as me, that didn't have the street smarts, told me, nah, Sid, that's not important, or the benefits of having that. But when I talk to my friends that I do know that got street smarts, they was like, yeah, they use it every day. That's a little bit what they call a spidey sense. um the reason why I found this topic so important, because right now, well-known rapper Jay Z, not just rapper but corporate boss, is reportedly suing Bacardi over Douce Cognac partnership. Lawyers for Jay Z are allegedly demanding transparency surrounding the brand. So, when I went to go look into this a little bit, one of the big issues was they did an evaluation on the Douce brand, which is split partnership between Bacardi and Jay Z. Um, they had evaluated the brand, I think, for like 1.5 billion. So Jay Z tried to buy full ownership during that time. Now the issue is he feels that Bacardi is devaluing the brand, not only hurting the brand profits, but also is basically just using his name and likeness and image to sell just enough, but not enough to where he can actually expand the brand. So I felt that was very interesting. And the reason that I kind of picked that story and I picked Jay Z today, surrounding the street smarts, is because he came from the same environment as me, right? And from his business moves, as he grew into the corporate person that he is today, I've really felt a lot of moves he made. He used street smarts, right? Because some of the biggest people that's in the streets could have ran Fortune 500 companies, but it's just about the opportunity. With that being said, at least for me, I feel like it benefits, even for me, being able learning how to read people, because in the streets it's a little bit more non-structured, right? And what I mean by that is, in the street, you make a wrong mistake, you can end up losing your life. In corporate America, it's not that drastic, right? You can end up losing your job, but you can get another job. You can't go and get another life. So that's one thing that really hit home for me with speaking on this podcast. I feel I feel like I got an Ivy League education in the streets. Just growing up in Chicago on the South Side, like I said on the last episode, there's a lot of booby traps and things that can deter you from who you can become. But it is worth the knowledge. If you have it, you should be able to use that to your benefit, especially in corporate America, because everything in corporate America is not textbook. You need a little bit of that mentorship. And that's what happened with me, right? I was lucky enough to get great mentors in a business acclimate and with my street acclimate. And they both went hand to hand. A lot of stuff that CEOs and founders of corporate companies that I was lucky enough to meet throughout my life gave me some of the same advice as the people that I knew in the streets. And once I start putting those two together, I started to understand they're coming from the same place. It's just different circumstances, which entails how they proceed. Corporate America, the environment to me in corporate America is it's a supply and demand with anything else. Same thing in the streets, it's supply and demand. And it's all about who can execute, in my opinion, right? Who can execute that project or that task. Those are the people that are successful. People that can critically think and have the emotional intelligence to understand situations. And I feel with street smarts, you get that emotional intelligence that most people learn from a textbook in corporate America. You get that because, like I said, you can lose your life by having the wrong conversation or not being able to handle a situation, not having that emotional intelligence to be great. With that being said, I really like how you get to see all these different environments, within my journey. Because, like I said, for me, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and I met a lot of great people just throughout Chicago that helped me become who I am today, and that's why I say it was drilled into me at an early age that legacy is what's important because that money gonna come and go, you know. For example, one thing I kind of learned in a business acclimate is ownership is key, right? And that's not something that you really taught in the streets. You taught to make the money. Yeah, you want to be the top person, but ownership is what's gonna push that legacy and continues that legacy. And that's one thing that I had to learn in the corporate America environment, right? Is that legacy is is key, not only for generational wealth, right, but your family's legacy, making sure that they're comfortable. And it takes time, right? It takes time to grow. And one thing that happens in corporate America is a lot of people play the long term game, and in the streets we don't play the long term game, right? People don't play the long term game in the streets. It's the day to day pace. You might have goals, but it's always that split decision that's day to day. And in the corporate environment, it's the long term goals that you set. And then I think that's where that street smarts kind of meet in it, right? Because you learn at a fast pace on how to execute and perform, and you bring that to the corporate environment. Because like I said, you already learned how to become a critical thinker. By learning how to become that critical thinker, you are establishing dominance of execution in the corporate environment. Most people, most people don't see it that way, right? I talked to some of my friends, that were in the streets or still in the streets, just to be honest, right? And I asked them, and they like, "Oh, Sydney, I wouldn't be able to work in no corporate office." And I asked them, "What's the difference other than what you wear? What is the difference?" Because somebody's asking for something. It's supply and demand. You are running a corporate business. Think about how many people recently opened up dispensaries and things of that nature. Just a couple years ago, all that was illegal. But now you see corporate partnerships, you see stores everywhere and corporate partnerships on a large scale because they still acclimated it as a business once it became legal. And that's the thing, right? And that's the biggest thing where I feel that the street smarts have to kind of mesh with the corporate environment because you running an operation in your neighborhood and you could be a CEO of a company. I wouldn't trade anything that I learned with street smarts for anything because that knowledge that I got, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I was able to um, go out and actually learn the corporate side of business, right? And I always joke from time to time with some of my friends, that had a different upbringing. Like, yeah, I can go out and get a Harvard or Yale education, but you can't go to the South Side of Chicago and get the same education I did. And that's kind of like some of our running jokes from time to time, but it's a true statement, right? Because every low poverty neighborhood has has geniuses. Think about it. Going back to Jay-Z, he was able from a project apartment to become one of the most successful businessmen of our time. We didn't really hear about billionaires as frequently as we do now. And from becoming a rapper to claim businessman is pretty impressive. With that being said, going back to his lawsuit, right? If you think about it, his lawsuit basically shows that he understands the market, right? He understands the supply and demand because a person maybe not with the street smarts and maybe just had the uh corporate acumen with stuff would have said, you know what? Yeah, you right. I'm happy with what you're giving me. I'm making good money. Yeah, I don't own the company outright, but you paying me a check. I'm not gonna complain. But from his hustling days, he remembered like, no, that don't make sense. You fronting me work, but at the same time, you're using me as the face. You fronting me this work and you using me as the face, but I'm telling you, I want to bat the whole company because I understand the profit margins that I can make if I owned it myself. And they like, no, hold on now, you jumping the gun. And he was able to use his street smarts in a business sense to understand that and say, no, no, I'm not going to go for that. I'm going to go and do my thing. So, like I said, I thought that was pretty interesting. So this is part one of this episode. We're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna probably drop the second part of this episode a little bit earlier than Sunday. But stay tuned because like I said, this is a very interesting topic. I'm currently breaking it up at the moment. I love you guys. I see you guys next time. Watch out for part two of this episode. Love.